Hello, this is Top Kitty here, and I'm so thankful that you saw the topic of today's discussion and decided to log on and explore what it is that was troubling you. Today I woke up to a very disturbing email from another kitty of mine, another kitty associate, who brought something to my attention after something happened to us at a club this weekend when we were trying to celebrate our friend's 21st birthday. And what that was is that she lied to a guy that she was turning 18 instead of that she was turning 21. When we later asked her about this, she admitted that being younger was something that she realized guys that she had been interacting with were more attracted to. And so even though she's only 21, she lied that she was closer to my age because she felt that it would get her, it would gain her more favor. After this happened, the next morning, today actually, happy Sunday, another kitty sent us over this, alerting us that the desire to have sex with children has become so prevalent in our society that it has become the norm. I'm so disturbed by this that I almost don't know where to start. But let's first start with defining normal. In accordance to Google, normal is defined as conforming to a standard, something that is to be considered the usual, typical, or expected. So basically what we are being alerted to is that the average amount of males now have a desire to sexually violate your child, or rather someone else's child, between the ages of 11 and 14 is what this is saying. And so with this being the case, what we really need to ask ourselves at this point in time is what steps do we need to, as a society, now put into place to protect our most delicate, our most precious, and our most innocent, now that it has been brought to awareness that your common male desires to have sex with a child, or rather to sexually violate a child. Now, in this article and in many articles discussing child molestation, one of the terms that I'm not finding commonly used is the word sexual violation. Any sex with a child is a violation to that child for multiple reasons. I think that one way to address this issue with males is to first address with them the fact that they are not seeing the fact that they are wanting to sexually violate something innocent. They are simply seeing that they are seeing something that is innocent, that is easy, and that is being highly sexualized throughout the media and is bringing them pleasure. That being said, I believe it is causing a psychological issue with males to where they are not seeing this as sexual violation, but just simply now seeing our little children as sexual play toys due to the fact that it has been highly promoted amongst the media for children to be sexualized. At this point, we really need to sit down as a society and start determining what are the best steps to take to protect our children. Before I get into this next clip, I really wanted to read some lyrics from one of today's hottest rappers and singers. This song is called Oh Yeah by Chris Brown, and one of the things that he specifies in this song is something that I want to highlight before I play the clip of this very inappropriate example of sexualization of our children. What Ply says is, what's my biggest turn on? It's a woman that is flexible. I'm not talking about her limbs. I'm talking about her limbs. I ain't talking about her schedule. Okay? Now, keeping that in mind, that a lot of men find flexibility to be something that is highly sexual, typically men find attire such as this to be highly sexual. So, one thing you have to ask yourselves is that why are we putting little girls, because I want everyone to realize that I am legally an adult, so it is okay for me to dress like this and to accentuate, because that's what you're doing when you put something like this on, you are accentuating your intimate, sensitive areas. When I am covering just this portion of myself, such as a bikini or just a simple pair of panties, I am doing that because I am highlighting my erogenous zones. That is what these people are doing to these children. They are highlighting the children's erogenous zones. They are displaying that the children are flexible and that they can gyrate, that they can shake their tail feather, and that they can essentially do all the things that bigger girls like myself can do. Now, I'm going to say something that is very inappropriate, but it is not going to be any more inappropriate than what you are now witnessing here. While we watch this video of these little girls displaying, or actually being displayed as sexual objects, I'm going to actually tell you what it is they're really doing. So first of all, this video is one that I found that the children are more dressed than usual. Actually, I didn't really feel comfortable playing anything in such as these ones where the little girls are just completely okay. So now I think it's time to discuss a little bit of what we saw. Okay. So while many of us will watch this video and we will say that what we are witnessing is a high degree of talent amongst children who, by that way, these little girls are aged 5 to 7. But what we are actually seeing is children being advertised as instruments of sexual pleasure without their knowledge. Okay, that's what's happening right here. You have little girls doing dance moves that are simulating sexual moves. You have them dressed completely inappropriate, and the reason that they're inappropriate is because they are dressed to be on display. Okay, they are wearing things that my dad would say, you're going out to find a husband. Are you going out to find a husband, honey? Why are you dressed like that then? Okay, these little girls, there is no reason that they should have full navel showing for the most part. Like I said, they're wearing panties that are made to accentuate their pleasure zones. They're wearing tall boots to accentuate their legs and their thighs, and they're gyrating. So what they're doing to the male population, I'm going to guess the males who are now craving to sexually violate them, is to the males, they are saying, I can do what big girls can do. But let me tell you, the one thing they can't do that big girls can do is take dick, okay? These little girls need to be protected from these males who are now saying that it is normal for all males. It is normal for normal males, they are saying, to be sexually aroused by children and desire to have sex with them. Desire to sexually violate a child has become normal. One of the reasons a pedophile will push for the rights to normalize their desires and even call it a mental condition, what they're trying to do is they're trying to escape having to be penalized, and they're trying to escape being punished, and they're trying to seduce the rest of the world into accepting the fact that they want to sexually violate your child. Okay? Think about this. It is normal for a child to wet the bed when they are going through their stages of learning to be potty trained. Therefore, you will not punish a child for wetting the bed. You will not set laws against wetting the bed because this is a normal thing that children do. There is no punishment, there is no loss, there is no reprimandation. What you will do is you will be a good parent, you will clean their sheets, and then you will give them additional training for potty training. Okay? Now, if your child walks into their room, pulls down their underwear, and urinates on their bed, that is when you know, okay, my child has messed up, and it is time to now reprimand you. That behavior is abnormal. These pedophiles are trying to push for their desires to be a mental condition so that they can say that they do not need to go to jail or prison or be penalized for this behavior. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you a list of reasons why this needs to be punished regardless. Many child molesters will claim that their desire and love for children is so strong that they absolutely cannot help themselves. They cannot live a pleasant, comfortable, or happy life unless they have the right and availability to violate children sexually. Child molesters claim to love kids, but they don't consider the harm they cause us. They disregard our feelings and our suffering, and they even manipulate us and or scare us into keeping their secrets once we finally do realize that there is something wrong with the way that our young bodies are being touched. Okay? Many cravings are normal, especially those cravings that could potentially result in personal pleasure that is not damaging. It is harmless. Typically for the child molester, they get to receive easy pleasure from a child, and it is harmless to their own bodies. They disregard the child completely, and typically the child who is in danger and or being victimized by sexual activity with an adult, that child will not even know that something wrong is going on until later on in their life. The child's body may not even react negatively until later on in their life when the child starts to actually legitimately develop sexually and start trying to find sexual healthy relationships. I really don't care if this is a mental illness. I do not care if it is a mental retardation. There is no way in the world that we as a society should ever permit or allow anyone to sexually violate or have a sexual intercourse with the child. It just should not happen. Okay? When something is proven to be physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually damaging to our most precious and young, it has already been established as a factual normality that your common male wants to sexually violate a child. It should be clear that it is time to implement safety procedures to protect our little girls and our little boys from potential and definite sexual violators. So what I'm here to ask you is, what are we going to do about this? We can no longer ignore it. It is very common in the media. Sexualization of children is one of the most prevalent forms of advertisement, entertainment that there is today. And we really need to face reality that there are, yes, a large degree of people in the United States that are obviously taking pleasure in watching children in sexual activities. So what needs to happen is, instead of people trying to deny this and even punishing the child molester, what we really need to do is address this issue with this question at the forefront. What can we do as a society to start protecting our young from not just being overly sexualized, but from being victimized? Because the fact of the matter is, the reason that we have laws to protect children against sexual predators is because that shit hurts, okay? It hurts being in a sexual relationship with an adult when you were a child. You are being robbed out of your sexual experience. We are being robbed out of our right to discover sexuality on our own, and we are being manipulated and tricked into carrying on a sexual relationship in secret that we are holding. And we are going to experience so much trauma later on in life that it is not even funny. And these child molesters, these sexual predators, they come in any age. Okay? Mine was 22 when we met. And yes, there are 22-year-old males out there who desire to have sex or who desire to be in sexual relationships with babies 3 to 1 years old. Yes. And now we have shows like Bratz Babies. Shows such as Bratz Babies demonstrate two things. One, they demonstrate that children are enjoyed in sexual situations as early as toddler age. These are babies, and if you actually watch the show, many of times they are being pulled out of their high chairs, dressed in sexually inappropriate things that are, again, accentuating their erogenous zones, that are showing peekaboo up the skirt images. They're in their underwear. And one might ask themselves, why do we have babies being made up, walking around in their panties and a little top, and doing big girl things? Why? Why do we as a society, people, need to see this? This needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed with respect, actually, because I do believe that all people deserve to exist. And I believe that all people deserve to exist peacefully and safe. And children are not safe if your common male desires to stick his penis inside of a baby. Okay? We cannot be safe. And this is why so many children are coming up missing. So now that we are equipped with this information that your child needs to be protected from your common male wanting to and trying to have sex with them, what are the best ways to attack this, to protect our children? Well, first, we need to address the issue with the desire to understand sex offenders and those who desire to be sex offenders. We will need to explain to them, which means we will need to continue to broadcast shows like this, or rather conversations like this, that will explain to the child molester the damage they are causing to their victims, and that sometimes it can take a child to mature mentally before they can even realize they were sexually violated. How many self-esteem issues will arise later on in life, and all of the other damage that will be caused to us once we realize what has happened to us, okay? Sometimes child molesters go their entire relationship with many children, violating these children, and they believe that they're not doing anything wrong. They have been able to seduce the child into returning to them and to even ask for sexual attention. This is due to a lot of different reasons that we will get into later, but I think that it's really important for your common offender to understand that children will do these things because sometimes they don't understand. And the reason that they don't understand it is because it's actually physically incapable for a child to understand what they are experiencing when an older person is leading them into a sexual relationship. The reason why it is impossible for a child, because the child has not physically matured enough. Excuse me, I'm getting very upset. And they are not old enough. They literally, physically do not have what it takes to understand what is going on mentally or physically. When we are children, I thought I paused the video. When we are children, we learn a song called Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes. Most of us can identify where our nose is, where our lips are, and we also are familiar with our brain. What we are not familiar with, however, is the development of our brain. And most of us are unaware of a device that we have called the frontal lobe. This frontal lobe is not developed until you're at age 25. And this frontal lobe is responsible for some pretty important functions, such as they control important cognitive skills in humans, such as emotional expression, problem-solving skills, memory, language, judgment, and yes, sexual behavior. Basically, we are missing our control panel when we are under the age of 25. So basically what this is saying is that even me, being this big of a girl, I'm still not at the age yet to where I fully understand things. And so that is something that I really think needs to be at the forefront when we are confronting potential child victimizers. Another thing that needs to happen is that we need to do whatever it takes to drastically minimize the sexualization of children. Little children should not be displayed as sexual offerings because it is highly damaging. It is damaging to children to display them as sex objects, and that is what we are doing when we are watching videos such as the ones that we had before, displaying the children. So what I want to do is go back to this. This is displaying children as sexual offerings, okay? These here are toddlers, and they are turning around, shaking their butts to say, look at my butt, okay? They are wearing, oh my God, this is so inappropriate. So, as stated, we now have a society that wants to put their penis in these little babies, okay? And a lot of them won't understand that it will hurt these children. A lot of men who are suffering from this mental sickness, or I don't even feel right about calling it a mental sickness, because I feel like our society is almost forcing people to find sexual pleasure and or programming them into seeing children as sexual objects. I would not allow this to take place with my children, but as you can see, based off the fact that I can go down and there is a string of little girls in inappropriate outfits, okay, dancing provocatively to lyrics that are sexual and inappropriate. And then as you can see here, the people who post the videos, they silence the viewers, so that this 465 people that don't approve, 466, we won't be able to go on here and communicate with this 2013 people who like this video. We won't be able to go on there and explain to them what is wrong with this, because we have been silenced by the promoter. Here you have a little girl doing something that males go to strip clubs to see. Males go to strip clubs because they want to see scantily dressed women who are flexible and who can show that they know how to work a pole. And here we have a little girl who is about 9 years of age, showing that she knows how to work a pole, that she is flexible. She is spreading her legs in all forms of ways. Okay, now yes, this is a great talent to have. However, in a world where we now know that your common male wishes to put his penis in her and sexually violate her, what I am saying is I think this needs to take a break. Yes, children are gorgeous. Yes, children are talented. They are sweet and they are innocent. But these are reasons that we should want to protect them. not reasons that we should want to sexualize them. And these are not reasons that we should find it okay to try to get permission to sexually violate them. So being that we have now established we live in a society where your common male finds it normal to have a desire to sexually violate little girls such as this, we now need to say, okay, we acknowledge the fact that this is something that is very enjoyable to watch. However, we should put this on the back burner for a little while. And so I will definitely say that minimizing sexual situations or sexualization of children is definitely a step that we will need to take if we're wanting to protect our little girls and little boys from those violators who have already admitted that they are finding it very difficult to not have sex, to not stick their penis in babies. Their penis or their tongues or their fingers, all of these in which can be damaging. Another thing that we can do to assist in protecting our children is offer a form of a substitute to those men who claim they're only interested in children because of their size. I'm glad we see here that they are demonstrating the little girl curled up in the fetal position, because this is exactly how she would be should a male actually did take out his desires to sexually violate her. Now here we have this young lady who is 18 years old. She is actually what you would refer to as a little person. It would be okay for someone to be sexually attracted to her in our society. The reason being is because she is 18 years old, even though, as we can see, she is actually only 24 inches tall. So if you are someone who is claiming to be sexually attracted to small, and that is not something that you can help, then perhaps you should go and find yourself a little person who can help you to indulge all of your sexual desires for someone small, and therefore you can leave the actual children alone and allow them to mature at their own rate. Sex offenders need to be made aware that though their desires to sexually violate little kids for their own selfish purposes may have been determined as normal, they still need to practice restraint. Just as an alcoholic would need to fight the urge to indulge in drinking too much alcohol or drinking liquor at all because it would be damaging to his body, sex offenders need to practice restraint from imposing sexual activity on children, because it is highly damaging to the child's body, to the child's mind, to the child's soul. Those who desire to have sex with children need to understand why there are laws put in place to protect children. And perhaps then those who actually do love children as they claim would not be so far too excited, far too ready, far too devious about finding a child to sexually victimize. What I think needs to happen, what should have already been happening actually, is that this situation needs to be addressed realistically, okay? You cannot tell someone what they have the right to be attracted to. We cannot tell these men that they are wrong, that they are bad, or even that they are evil for their desire to have sex, to sexually violate children. Because they have already been programmed, guaranteed, they have already been programmed to see the sexual value and the sexual pleasure potential of someone who is small and fragile, does not have the knowledge to criticize them for what they are doing, and physically cannot really fight back, nor can they fight back mentally because they are lacking the ability to do so. So what needs to take place is these sex offenders need to be educated on why it is so harmful for them to have these, not desires, but to have these actions. Because I do not care if you are mentally retarded. I do not care if you are suffering from an emotional diagnosis. You do not have the right to victimize me or my child. Therefore, you either need to be put away or you need to be terminated. But either way, your desires should not ever be strong enough for us to ignore the degree of damage that your desires have a high potential to inflict. Therefore, regardless of whether this is a mental condition or what, whether it is a sexual preference that will not change, you need to find a substitute because it is not safe for you to violate children. You can have your desires all you want. I have once had the strong desire to shoot someone in the face. Guess what? That person just so happened to have been the very person who sexually victimized me as a child. Now, my desire to shoot them in the face was so strong that I was diagnosed with a condition. That condition was called postpartum depression. Now, if I go shoot them in the face, do you think that it would be right for the law to give me a slap on the wrist, or actually less? Because things that are normal should not be punished. And it is normal for a child to grow older, realize the degree in which they were sexually violated, and also realize that they have a plethora of emotional, physical, and spiritual damage due to a child molester. And some may say that I have the right to go and shoot this man in the face. Some will even say that it is normal for me to have this desire. But it is still not right. And so that is what you need to consider. According to the document that we are reading here, an academic conference said that to be interested in pedophilia is natural and normal for males, and that at least a sizable minority of normal males would like to have sex with children, and normal males are aroused by children. So this is actually this conference that was no doubt held by pedophiles to make themselves feel better are claiming that males who are not sexually attracted and who do not desire to sexually violate children are abnormal. Now, something is very disturbing that needs to be addressed. We just had an election. In that election, we, the majority, certainly not myself, elected a president that before he was elected, it came out that he had been accused of raping a 13-year-old girl. And the questions were asking why the media did not cover it. I'm going to put a link to all of these that we are looking at today. But what I wanted to address is that instead of our president, or actually what our president did due to the fact that he was convicted of raping, or excuse me, not convicted, he was accused of raping a 13-year-old girl. By the way, the way the law is set up is that that would be considered statutory rape had she consented. Had the little girl, with her lack of fully developed frontal lobe, had been convinced or seduced into saying yes, because that's what a lot of pedophiles will do. They will seduce you, trick you, and manipulate you into saying, yes, you can touch me this way, so that they can feel better about themselves. Now, perhaps he didn't force sex on her physically, but he obviously, due to the little girl's account, forced rape on her, as in when she left, she probably felt like, I really did not want to do that, and I would not have done that had I known what was going to happen. But what our president did is he signed to lower the age of consensual sex to 13. Basically, he is now saying, our president is saying that little prepubescent girls, before you start your period, before you start growing your big girl hair, way before your frontal lobe is fully developed, you are now on the market for sexual violators to freely violate you without having to worry about penalty from the law. Why? Because our president himself is a sexual violator, and he proved that before he was elected into office. So now what we have to ask ourselves is that, this being common knowledge that our president is a sexual violator, admitting it out of his own mouth, how many Americans are hiding the fact that they too desire to and or agree with sexually violating children? And why? Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to explore or to just use a little bit of common sense and to see how is it that society will be affected by our little girls, our prepubescent girls, being placed on the market for older males' sexual explorations, sexual violations. One thing that we can guarantee that in the future, well, let's say just this weekend, my 21-year-old friend lied about her age to present herself as younger to be more appealing to a man who was about 52 years old. That is very disturbing. And the conversation that I had with her after having experienced that was even more disturbing. But right now, we're having an epidemic of women who are 30 years and older who are suffering from being able to find a decent man. Males are what they're calling it upgrading to younger females. The reason that males target younger girls is because, one, they're easier, because we are lacking knowledge. But we are still sexualizing ourselves because we are following the trends. And as you can see from what was displayed earlier, the trends are to be as sexy as possible and to gain as much attention from males as possible. So let's look at some possible repercussions for the future, for the next 5 years. Today, about 1 million 13-year-old girls were born. But let's just skip to 18, since my age is supposed to be the legal age for sex, but actually 16 is the legal age for consenting. So what we want to look at is likely in the future, your common bride will be 13 to 16 years old. Already 25-year-olds are complaining that they can't find husbands, and 18-year-olds are lying about, or 21-year-olds are lying about their age to make themselves younger, right at the peak of legal sexual availability, but now our president is lowering it to 13. So does that mean in 5 years an 18-year-old will have to lie and say she's 14 in order to get a male? Why would a guy put up with all that they're having to deal with from 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds if they can just go get a little 13-year-old girl and manipulate her and turn her into what they want? So these are my predictions for the future, with 13-year-old girls and boys being at the forefront of sexual availability. 25-year-old women will continue to behave as desperate sex toys and sluts, and they will be used as such more than likely. The reason they're going to be being used as sluts is because guys want what is easy. And I have a 25-year-old friend who has already had sex with 7 guys. If guys are looking for new, and they're still looking for sex because they want their cake and to eat it too, then they're going to be using the older female for this sex and going to be also using the younger one for the sex as well, unfortunately. So while they're using these 25-year-old women and older for sex, your common male, as we've already determined, who is already sexually desiring to sexually violate the children, they will go and find a 13-year-old girl or boy and make this person their willing submissive. Why? Why is it that they can easily make a 13-year-old their willing submissive? Because she has already been heavily seduced, manipulated, and programmed by every single source of media, books that we're reading, and sadly, even examples from our own home. Because let's face it, those little girls that we saw in the video gyrating, pop locking and dropping it and spreading their thighs as far apart as their thighs could spread, those little 7-year-old girls, they were being managed by other women. They were being managed by their parents. They had permission to do that, and they had a lot of training by an adult. An adult trained these girls to accentuate their pleasure zones. An adult trained these little girls to spread their thighs open. An adult trained these girls to shake their butts, to bend over, to open their legs, and to hump the stage, and to do all of those provocative sexual dance moves. An adult trained them to do this. Okay? So little girls are already being trained from infancy to be sexually available. That is why in 5 years, I am predicting that males are not going to bother wasting their time with women or older females who have brains and the ability and the knowledge to say, no, this is not right. Instead, they're going to go find the little girls who got caught up in the 50 Shades of Grey epidemic, and they are seduced by the idea of being a submissive. Okay? And they are going to train them from the age of 13, which is the easiest. Because when you're at that age, you're prepubescent, your hormones are just going to start, and they're very fresh. I still remember the first time, fill in the blank, waking up, wondering, wow, what was that dream about? Guess what? That 13-year-old is going to be able to get a 22-year-old who doesn't really know what he's talking about, but she's going to think that he does. And she will be willing to do anything that he wants. And why would that 22-year-old date an 18-year-old who is going to have the mind to talk back, who is going to have the mind to refuse him sexual activities and or try to hold sexual activities against him because he did something wrong? Guarantee you that little 13-year-old girl will not be able to exercise the same authority over her body. She will not be able to. And this is why it is so important that we start to protect our children. On top of our president enforcing a sexual target of prepubescent children, there are also a group of psychiatrists who are attempting to alert society that the desire to have sex with toddlers and infants have been so heightened that it is now considered a normal desire for males to seek after. They are seeking after toddlers, okay? Obviously, they are seeking after toddlers. Otherwise, shows like Bratz Babies, Toddlers in Tiaras would not exist. But what they are trying to do is get a society to become comfortable with seeing their children and other people's children as sex objects. Therefore, they will ignore the fact that these children are being violated sexually. I am predicting that in the future, females who are older and are likely just right above 25, they will probably be used for their sex, their money, and or their status. But I guarantee they will rarely be married. Unless, of course, females with little kids and children will likely be targeted for marriage. Why? Obviously, so that the child molester who does not have the ability to birth or adopt their own child can molest their toddler and their wives' children. Okay? And these are, of course, the females that will be targeted. Okay, it is common sense that more and more people will be suffering from sexual damage, depression, drugs, and a high suicide rate. Why? Because the majority of victims of sexual abuse as a child and as an adult suffer from all of these above. There are so many things that I want to touch bases with in regards to this being brought to my attention. I am someone who is very respectful of desires. I am in the sex positive community, and I think that it is very important to acknowledge and respect that a lot of people have unique desires, and our desires are not things that we can really change. We cannot really change our desires, absolutely not. But just as I have to fight my desire and urge to go and shoot my pedophile in the face, my pedophile should have fought his urge to sexually abuse me. And unfortunately, because of the fact that child sexualization is so common, he did not find anything wrong with what he was doing, and was actually able to convince himself that I was aware of what was happening to my body and that his behavior was okay. He believed it was okay because it was determined as normal. Everything that is common should not be acceptable. For a long time, it was normal for Europeans to go over to other countries and steal people and force them into slavery, subjecting them to mental abuse, to rape, to physical abuse, to enslavement, to malnourishment. And all of this was legal, and it was normal, and it was permitted. It was actually the law. We have to think about the fact that just because something is the law and just because something is accepted by a large population does not mean that it should be acceptable and does not mean that it should go unpunished. Sadly, when children are molested, It is only one person who is unpunished, and that is unfortunately the offender. Because the child who experienced the violation, they will be punished. They will be punished by their own minds and their own bodies and time, because they will experience a plethora of problems from having a sexual relationship, or having been targeted, having been victimized sexually by someone older. I am going to guarantee that I will be discussing this topic again. But some things that you can do if you are worried about this epidemic that is arising. And the epidemic is not men being sexually attracted and wanting to sexually violate children. The epidemic is the fact that now we have people who are in large positions of power who are doing all they can to bombard the media, to bombard your children with sexual images, to leave them with no choice but to be programmed to be someone's sex toy. We have a president who has now said that it is okay for males to target your 13-year-old child for sexual activity, something that they are supposed to have the right to discover themselves, something that is supposed to develop slowly, something that we are supposed to be able to have and worry about later on in life. So much comes with sex. So much more than pleasure. It would be really nice if there was something that was just pleasure and we didn't have to worry about all of the damage, but we do. So if you are one of those males who are looking for a child to sexually victimize because you have seen that society has said this is normal, I am asking you to consider all of the damage that you are going to do to that child now and in the future. Until next time, I am Top Kitty, and I am signing off. And I am going to ask everyone who watched this, please do not like or dislike this video. I want to hear your fucking voice. Because if there is anything that children deserve, it is to be able to see that adults will protect them. These are our babies. And it is only pleasurable for the victimizer. It is not pleasurable for the child in the long run. So do not like or dislike this video. Use your fingers and express your thoughts. Ask questions. Leave comments. Share how you feel. Share your experiences. This is not the time to be silent. It is the time to do, at the very least, the bare minimum of your capabilities. Because our children are being targeted. They are being kidnapped. And the laws, unfortunately, are not protecting them, as you can see. The laws are being put in place to protect the violators. We have a president in office who has admitted to being a sexual violator. After that admission, he was elected into office. That tells us that we have a large majority of people who are using their voice, who are on the wrong side. The violators are using their voice and they are fighting for the right to sexually violate your children. You need to use your voice too. And you need to say that this is not okay. And you need to say that you're willing to protect your children, even if that means you have to sacrifice watching other people's children being sexually displayed. Thank you to everyone who has listened, and thank you to everyone who will post a comment, because now is the time, more than ever, where you need to use whatever it is that you have. So if all you have is your voice, we don't have any official authority, but you can say something. You can write a letter. You can make comments on videos for people who are speaking against these things. But we need to know that we too are supported. People who want to protect children, we need to know that we are supported. I need to know that I'm not a freak for wanting children to be protected from sexual violators. So please do what you can and use your voice.